And we are live. How you doing, Kirk?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm just wonderful. I hope everybody out there is wonderful. I'm here with my friend Kirk Wilcox. Um, we're going to be talking tonight about Iran, or honestly, whatever we want to talk about. Oh, God damn it! I always do that. I have the fucking stream open, and then I hear
And
myself
I
talking.
muted it right away. I was on top of it this time.
Yeah, I clicked out of it. But it's good to know that we are live. So the minute I heard myself talking in my headphones. But yeah, we're going to talk about Iran, but honestly, we'll talk about whatever. What's new with you, Kirk?
Well, I am hoping to get a new video essay out this week on political violence and the healthcare system, which is, I'm sure, as many can imagine, is about the murder of the United Health CEO Brian Thompson back in December and the insane cultural reaction to it. And I thought, what then to make a good long video about the history of the healthcare system, all the problems with it, and also the problem with political violence, because I think 2025, especially since December, you could say, well, political violence has been a growing trend even leading up to December 2024, but especially this year, I think it's a growing and very troubling trend.
Yeah, and we just had that Minnesota senator or state senator
Yeah.
murdered, right? Yeah, that was the guy
It was
you
a
mentioned.
state representative who
State
got
representative,
killed
excuse
and a state senator who got shot.
That's right.
And the state representative, Melissa Hortman, her husband also got shot and killed. And John Hoffman, I think his name was, him and his wife got shot, but they survived. But Hortman and her husband were both dead. Also, the guy dressed up as a police officer when he was doing it.
Yeah,
which is messed up.
He got those because he's like some security contractor. This is what I've heard.
Was I the first one who thought, yeah, I don't think people are stupid for watching the first Home Alone movie and being fooled by what's his name? The guy he dressed the burglar. Yeah. Dressed up as a policeman. And like occasionally you'll see around Christmas time every year. Wow, it just dawned on me that the policeman is the same guy as the burglar. It's like, yeah, that's kind of the point. He was doing undercover work, scoping.
The wet bandits. All right, so tonight,
sticky bandits.
The sticky bandits. What's that from? Oh, was that their original
bandits
name? That's right. Yeah,
they were the wet bandits in the first movie, sticky bandits in the second movie.
That's right. Okay. So, what are you drinking tonight, Kirk?
I am drinking sun-kissed orange flavored water.
Sun-kissed orange flavored water. How's that different from sun-kissed?
It's not soda. You get like how the water, like you have like the flavor sticks that you put in a bottle of water and you shake it up and it flavors it. I just dump it in a big cup of water and stir it up.
Does it taste like sun-kissed?
Yeah, it tastes like orange, I guess. Yeah, it tastes like orange drink, as Dave Chappelle might say, but no carbonation. So,
gotcha. But I assume it has fewer calories.
0. I think 10, because I have 2 servings, so 10 calories in this whole thing.
Well, speaking of low calorie drinks that can set the mood, I'm drinking this tonight, Breeze. So,
ooh.
I got this drink free through work. I was at a trade show at the Pfizer Forum, and like I don't know if you were aware of this, but they have like all these THC infused drinks now.
Yeah,
but the Pfizer Forum, they're actually not allowed to give THC infused drinks away, and so they don't sell them there. But like most of the THC infused people have like non-THC infused drinks, and so like this guy is like, yeah, like, we mix this with like different mushrooms. So like, it gives you like that uplifted confidence. And like, so, if you want to go to a party and be like sociable and stuff, you would drink this. And I was like, can I have one for free? And he's like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm just try it sometimes. This was like 3 months ago. It's been sitting in my fridge the whole time. Then just recently I started seeing ads on social media making the exact pitch that guy made to me. It's like, I used to drink like alcohol all the time. Then like I woke up hungover, but man, then I switched to Breeze and like it gave me this really like euphoric feeling with like an uplift, and like I wake up without the hangover and the regrets and And I'm like, based on these advertisements alone, I would never buy this product. But we'll see. We'll see if I. And another thing too. It's like it's easily stackable. I've no fucking clue what that means, unless they mean the cans are literally easy to stack. Like, I don't know. We'll see. It's this is Breeze Flow, and it's even spelled in an obnoxious way because like BREZ, but the E's got a little line. I don't know what the line is. It's a little line that makes it whatever. And it's called Flow because they have one that like this is a functional beverage, so it's like it's basically like it's Adderall in a can. Yeah, bullshit. But then
Adderall in a can.
Who the fuck knows? And then they have like the rest version. Then they have the Amplify one. It's like instead of the ad for that's like instead of like when I go to a party I have a Breeze in my hand. If I went to a party and I saw somebody with one of these cans in their hand, I'd leave. I'd be like, this party's filled with douchebags. Let's see. But this is lemon and elderberry, so
that sounds good. Lemon and elderberry. But so I've never had mushrooms before, but I've had.
It's not psilocybin. I just want to make clear.
Okay.
There's nothing psychoactive in this. What were you saying?
No, I've had THC infused drinks before. They make me, if anything, you said like, make you feel sociable. Like, no, THC generally makes me feel not want to be sociable.
Yeah,
maybe
it
that's
makes me want to like tuck away and like hide under the covers. Okay, so this has lion's made, cacao, black seed oil, and theanine. I've taken theanine before. It tastes okay. It's kind of carbonated, but okay.
Does it have a good kick?
No, it doesn't.
Carbonated?
My guess. What's that?
Is it carbonated?
It's kind of got a little sparkle to it. My guess is that this does absolutely nothing. But if I'm like flowing throughout the stream, then we'll know. We'll know that it's legit. $4.99.
Yeah, one thing.
Sorry, go on.
One thing I've been getting into this year is the flavored sparkling water drinks. I saw like a tweet about this a few weeks ago. Someone was like, "Is this just a girl thing or are guys into this too?" I'm like, no, it's like been slowly supplanting my diet soda habits. I really like it's called sparkling ice, but Kroger also has its own thing now. And now my house is just like I just have multiple cases in different flavors of these sparkling water, which are basically like they're kind of like alcoholic seltzer beverages, just without the alcohol. So,
okay,
but I've been those lately, so
one I actually like. I never drank Liquid Death, but this is again something I got free through work because I tried the Liquid Death Coca-Cola or like cola. And it was actually pretty good, so I tried that. Let's see here. We got from Soupy Cask, $4.99. Thank you so much. I can't believe this. You're live streaming. World War III is literally about to start, and you're live streaming. Do you neocon warmongers have no soul? Well, that's a fair point. As you know, I used to be a military industrial complex employee, but I'm still a shill, obviously. And of course, the military industrial complex is at its old game, and they are starting World War III, and it's going to start with Iran, and Israel and Iran are currently trading bombs. I know today Tel Aviv got, an airstrike from Iran, and some actually did get through the Iron Dome. Obviously, that is a retaliation for airstrikes on Tehran from Israel. They've been going back and forth, folks. And the initial strike from Iran, it was like, a Pearl Harbor-esque strike. It was very effective. But apparently, according to some things I've read, Iran is regrouped. And now they're going at it again. I don't know. What do you know? What do you hear?
Well, first, I want to say another thing I've been up to is last year I went to the Objectivist Summer Conference, which is what the Ayn Rand Institute puts on. And last year, I made friends with a few people who live in Israel there. They came all the way to California to go to the Objectivist Conference. Few good people I met there who live in Israel, and I've been we follow each other on Twitter, and I've checked in with them. They seem to be doing good, but it looks like a lot of them won't be able to make it this year because of the flight restrictions on Israel. And so, but I'm going again in a couple of weeks. And so I'm kind of bummed that I won't see them, and I hope they're doing okay. But yeah, every time I read about strikes on Israel, I do worry that people I know and care about might get hurt or killed. And hopefully everything will be fine. But other than that, I think it's been a pretty impressive military operation by Israel so far. And it looks like this operation has been a year into the making. And I know people have been trying to connect it to the other operations that they've been doing on Hezbollah and trying to neutralize a lot of Iran's proxies in the region, because once you neutralize them, then it becomes easier to go after Iran, because you don't have to worry about incoming fire from the north or from the Houthis or wherever. But it looks like this has been a pretty big, impressive operation. And I know other people have said this is like Top Gun Maverick stuff that we're reading about, especially like the first night of Operation Rising Lion.
Mm-hmm. I guess
one. Oh, sorry. I paused for a second because I didn't know if I lost internet because the YouTube on my end is lagging. So sorry if I paused, but go on.
No, you're fine. I guess I should back us up. That very generous super chat, which I appreciate, did kind of throw me off. Obviously, the context here is Israel is very concerned about Iran getting a nuclear bomb, and the internet talk has been that we're going to be at war with Iran. And there's a lot of neener. People have been saying that Iran's going to be getting a bomb forever. And that's true.
Also, this was the reason why we went into Iraq. We said they have WMDs, and then we started a forever war, oopsie daisy, when they didn't have WMDs or whatever.
Right. So, and that's true. Iraq was a very bad disaster. They did not have, they had chemical weapons, of course, but they did not have a nuclear arm or a nuclear bomb, much less a nuclear program. And that was a bad war. People have been saying that Iran is on the verge of getting a nuclear bomb. What they leave out of that context is that, yeah, but we've also, people have been trying to undermine and sabotage that program forever. So it's there has been active efforts to delay that process, and those process. What was the thing where where the centrifuges? Adam tweeted about that yesterday. The program, the computer program. Fuck.
Well, I have this story. Okay,
that was the program. That was the one I'm thinking of. But how many different nuclear physicists have been assassinated, Iranian ones? Stuxnet, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Anyways, yes, if those were hard predictions, if you want to take those predictions at face value, sure, they've been wrong. But again, that program has also been undermined seriously. I've also heard so many times, literally since I've been in high school, so for almost 20 years now, war with Iran's coming. War with Iran's coming. We're going to be at war with Iran. War with Iran's coming. Don't worry. Or you better get worried. We're going to be in Iran soon. And I'm hearing that again. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there was this.
We got another flare up. Do you think we're going to be at war with Iran, Kirk? What were you saying?
Oh, are you talking about okay. So there's this article from the New Yorker that was published back in 2020, and it's called, I think it's titled The Twilight of the Iranian Revolution. And at one point it mentions the 28 operation that the Mossad carried out. It talks about how, where is it? Do I have it queued up? Yeah. Over time, there has been hints at the regime maintaining covert capabilities. The most recent one surfaced in 2018 after the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency, carried out a plot to steal nuclear secrets from a secure warehouse in Tehran. And basically, a bunch of Israelis snuck into Iran, broke into one of their facilities. They took a bunch of documents and compact discs, and they managed to get out before they could get noticed or caught. Which, again, this sounds like it would make for a good Netflix series or movie. Mm-hmm. But it also talks about how the Israeli, when the reports of the raid emerged, Iranian officials said that the whole thing was a hoax and that the documents were phony. The Israelis maintained, again, this is back in 2018, was a history of Iran's nuclear weapons program until 2003, when the regime claimed that they had largely suspended it. According to a Western expert, the documents detailed the existence of 2 nuclear sites that had been hidden from inspectors.
Mm.
One had produced uranium hexafluoride, a material used in the enrichment process, and the other was a facility for testing weapons components. Western officials could not determine whether or not the sites were active, but when international inspectors, alerted by the Israelis, asked to visit them, the Iranians refused and they razed the testing facility. Quote, there was a rush to clean up the site, unquote, the expert told me, the journalist referring to himself. So it sounds like maybe the Iranian, it sounds like they have been secretly working on nuclear weapons, if we're to trust these sources coming out of Israel from 2018.
Right. And so I'll come back to that in a minute. I guess my 10,000 foot view, or whatever you want to call it, is this. There are lots of good reasons why you don't want Iran to have a nuclear bomb. They are a very bad regime. You know, you've talked,
but Israel gets to have nuclear weapons. Why can't Iran have nuclear weapons?
I mean, our friend Sean talked about this. There's a big difference between a country that already has nukes. They're kind of grandfathered in. Maybe you say they shouldn't have gotten them in the first place. Okay, but that ship has already sailed. Like, I honestly would think things were better off if Pakistan didn't have nukes, but they do. Like, too fucking late. So there's a big difference between, wanting a new country not to get nukes and a country that already has them. Anyways, and one of the reasons I brought you on is because other than you're my friend and I enjoy talking to you, is that you have some very good videos about Iran, and they are linked below, by the way. But yeah, there's a number of reasons why you wouldn't want Iran to have a nuke, and among them are they're a very terrible regime. They really, they're a theocracy. To what extent they're religiously motivated? Would they really go crazy and be like, oh, we're gonna bring out Armageddon, boom, everybody's dead? I don't know, but
I mean, that's something to be considered, because I think that distinguishes them from even like a Xi Jinping or a Vladimir Putin. I don't think those guys are under any delusion that if they were to nuke Israel out of existence, that they would be rewarded in heaven. Whereas the Ayatollah, maybe not something comfortable to think about. Is that
a risk we're willing to take?
Yeah,
no, I'm not.
He's been saying on Twitter for over a decade that Israel needs to be destroyed.
I say we take them at their word. But I mean, look at the way. But I mean, let's assume that they're not crazy religious zealots, and that's just bluffing. Look at the way rogue regimes do behave when they have nukes. Look at Vladimir Putin. There's a good reason why you don't want them to have nukes. But then assume that they do get a nuke. That's going to start potentially more countries racing towards getting bombs as well. Saudi Arabia might want nukes. Again, they're a royal family. They're technically not a theocracy, but there are some religious kooks in that royal family. And then the more nukes there are in that region, the more likely they are to, land in the hands of one of those terrorist organizations that these guys fund. So it's and again, is that far-fetched? Maybe. Is that a risk I'm willing to take? No. Preventing them from getting a nuclear warhead or, nuclear weapons is a laudable goal. Regime change. Yeah. Again, there are good reasons why you wouldn't want, why it would be great to see the Iranian regime gone, the Ayatollah gone. That said, replaced with what? And that's the reality of the situation. You talked about in one of your videos, like, all these Marxists and left or liberal activists thought they were going to get something they wanted out of the Ayatollah, and really the Ayatollah was playing them. If let's say we overthrow the Ayatollah and we prop up some other guy, what happens then? The people, this is where, the goobers who we criticize on my channel, your channel, really do have their point. These projects did not go well in Afghanistan and Iraq.
No.
Why would we think it would go well in Iran? Why wouldn't, what would come after that? What do you think would come after that? I don't know. I really don't.
I don't know. I don't know either, but I've heard people saying this is something that York is talking about over the last week or so, ever since this started, how Iran is different because I think definitely different than from Afghanistan in this respect, that they're a more well-educated country, and there are significant portions of the people there that do want some sort of Western, maybe liberal democratic style of government. Whereas Afghanistan, it was like the idea that anyone thought that just chasing out the Taliban, building some power plants and schools and hospitals would magically make the like impoverished farmers there suddenly think, yeah, what I really want is to go vote. And on top of that, we essentially established a lighter form of theocracy there on top of that. Like it was a joke. And for those who want to read more, I'd highly recommend Craig Whitlock's book, The Afghan Paper. It goes into great detail about how that was just an incredible pipe dream. But I think one thing worth considering about Iran is that it's bad enough that it's a regime ever since the revolution, and it was in their constitution that it was a desire of them to export the revolution throughout the world, really spread it. And they have done so through its proxy groups, especially groups like Hezbollah, and they funded it, groups like Hamas and the Houthis, in effort to spread their flavor of theocracy. And they've also attacked Americans. They took our ambassadors hostage during the revolution. They've attacked military bases in Beirut, killing hundreds of Marines. The Ayatollah put a fatwa on Salman Rushdie's in the 1980s, which eventually did get attacked. I think back in 2022, 2023, someone took his eye out when he was, Ahmadinejad, who's an Iranian dissident who lives in New York. There have been kidnapping and assassination plots on her. There have been assassination of plots against John Bolton, even Donald Trump when he was running for president last year. Biden's Justice Department was reporting on this when that was happening. All of that alone is horrible enough. But on top of that, what makes Iran unique is its symbolism. The revolution is very symbolic in the fact that it demonstrated that if you're an Islamist organization or movement and you're committed and you're serious, you can overthrow a U.S.-backed government like Iran, a big country like Iran, and you can succeed, and the U.S. won't really do much about it. And there's been a lot of people have written about how this definitely had an impact on terrorist organizations who maybe are at odds with Iran, but they recognize that, the revolution, they managed to chase out the Americans, and the Americans didn't do anything about it. Maybe we can attack the Americans without any concern of consequence or whatever.
I remember on that last point, Lawrence Wright writing in the Looming Tower that even Sunni organizations like the precursors to Al Qaeda were like, hey, the Shia guys did that in Iran, they're Shia, but they're still, Muslims casting off the Americans. Why couldn't we do that? As far as the Afghanistan point, you're not making some pseudo speciation argument. There's nothing fundamentally different about the people of Afghanistan than there is about Persians than there is about Americans. But
no,
Iran,
absolutely not.
No, of course not. Iran is one of the oldest civilizations.
This on Twitter. Hold on. When he posted it, just to go off on this, I saw people saying like, oh, can you talk about Donald Trump and ICE and whatnot? And some of the tragedies I'm reading about in regards to the immigration crackdowns is that there are good Afghan immigrants in the United States, a lot of them who fled the Taliban after we pulled out, and they're getting deported back to Afghanistan, which is a death sentence essentially. So no, I don't think there's anything inherent about Afghanistan. It's just a fact of life that it was a very impoverished country that was not ready for democracy.
Yeah. Whereas Iran, the Persian Empire, one of the oldest civilizations in the world, it's much more modern in that sense. It's much more established than Afghanistan was. Afghanistan, obviously, a lot of the old cliche, and it's true, is that the Middle East was very much carved up after World War I into just different hodgepodges and not along ethnic lines, because that's apparently how things should be done. But people have no real self-identification. And of course, I think only about 50% of Iran is Persian, but still there's much more. It's got more cohesiveness than Afghanistan ever does, but as I understand.
Yeah.
And like, it's,
I should add, Afghanistan was also incredibly uneducated. And if you read Craig Whitlock's book, there are just so many examples of like there were like people in Afghanistan who like didn't even know what a king was, much less democracy. Yeah. So
wow. Okay. Soupy Cask, thank you so much. $9.99 super chat. Israel seems to be aiming for regime change. Thoughts on the likelihood of this? I don't think there will be a popular uprising or a coup. So I think a Syria or Libya outcome is inevitable. Like you said afterwards, we already kind of touched on this, but Syria was just overthrown. How is that? I haven't heard much about Syria, and I know that guy was a former He was a former member of ISIS, wasn't he? But I remember seeing like photos of him reading Why Nations Fail. But I know Libya's in a bad spot right now, but it's not like they were doing great under Muammar Gaddafi. But
yeah, last I heard about Syria was they did get taken over by like an Islamist movement, but they were kind of smart enough to recognize that most Syrians don't really want that, so to like maybe pump the brakes a bit, get in power, and then maybe they can wean their way into that. It's my understanding, and I could be totally wrong.
Yeah,
but that was my understanding. But a disappointment of mine with over the last few weeks, and every few years there's some sort of like mass protest demonstrations in Iran. The last one was the Masa Amini protest, and also one in 2019 in response to horrible economic conditions, which I feel like didn't get reported a lot. But every time when it happens, I'm like, oh my God, is this going to be it? Are the Iranians finally going to overthrow this monstrous regime and then replace it with something better? At the very least, not hostile to America and Israel. And so when Israel started attacking, I'm like, oh my God, this might enable the people who are fed up with the regime, they might finally take over. And right now, I know there's a lot of people in Iran cheering on the Israelis, but there doesn't really seem to be a big movement ready and willing to overthrow it. But a problem with it is they may not know exactly what they want to replace it. To your point of, we don't know what comes next. Maybe there's just not a good unifying force that people can organize around at the moment.
Right. And for me, that's the best case scenario, is that the Iran nuclear program is halted. Obviously, that's not going to come from within. And then the regime would be overthrown from within, because from the outside, again, I think you're going to get Iraq-like results. It's not going to go well. Organically, it's going to get much better results. So, and obviously, if there is an organic thing, it can be helped from the outside, but we'll see what happens. I am skeptical that it's going to get escalated. I'll be honest.
By Iraq results, you mean like it's just going to like resort to like a civil war where people are fighting over different territories or whatever?
Yeah, and like the central government just doesn't have that much control over things.
Yeah,
like, and there's not much buy-in for the central government, because you had, so like the big thing with Afghanistan or with Iraq was you had Shia and Sunnis, and then the media would always throw in like the Kurdish, which is weird because Kurds an ethnicity, not a sect. But like, obviously those three groups didn't always get along, and like they didn't want to be necessarily governed under the same government, especially not a democratic one. And so not everybody bought into the same thing. And my concern is that you would get that basically like Tehran ruled from the government, then and the urban areas, and then basically the rest of it's just sort of under whatever tribal control or whatever that the case might be. That would be my concern. If you could get buy-in from the actual people, you might actually get better results. From Michael Brandimarte, $4.99. Thank you so much. Could Iran ever go back to pre-Islamic revolution? You mean like the Shah? Or like, what specifically do you mean? Feel free to write in the chat. Don't feel the need to write a super chat. Like, Kirk, you had a video in one of your videos, you talked a lot about the Shah. I know he did 20 years in prison. He ate grilled cheese off a radiator. His brother died in his arms. Come on, man.
What are you talking? I don't know if I'm getting the reference. I'm sorry.
Philly Leotardo, man.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah. Like, how is it according to the 70s photo? Like, how it was according in the 70s photos and stuff. Part of that's propaganda. Like, that wasn't all Iran. Like, there were still religious fundamentalists in Iran, but there were like some very liberal and feminist areas in Tehran. I would hope so. That would be great, especially since Iranian
Yeah,
women tend to be hot. Like, but
I've talked to like people who either grew up in Iran and fled, or who have relatives or know people, and I've heard multiple people say that really the Shah's son, who's still alive and he's very
yeah,
vocal about this issue, like he's really the only game in town in terms of an alternative. And based on the brief brushing up I've done on him this week, it looks like he's interested in kind of serving as a transitional figure to a more liberal democratic Iran. Like he wouldn't want to come back and rule as a king.
okay.
Be serious about that. I think that would be nice. I don't know if the country would be able to rally around as an alternative, but my understanding is that a lot of people in Iran do look back at the good old days of before the Ayatollah, because as bad as the Shah was, and he was horrible, like it still was a lot better when compared to Ayatollah.
Yeah, better women's rights, as I understand, better social rights in general. Yeah, not a theocracy. That's good. So, and then let's talk about the American domestic front. There's been some contradictory polling on this, and
Really?
this is yes. Go figure. When you go to opinion polling, sometimes you get weird results. It's the I saw some poll that's like, 70% of America doesn't want war with Iran, which is to be expected. And then it was I'm sure you
Can we
saw
go back to the Shah for a second? Can we go back to the
go
Shah?
ahead. Yeah, please finish on the Shah.
So Israel's calling this Operation Rising Lion. And if
Yeah.
the Shah were to come back, it would literally mimic the story of the Lion King. I can't help but wonder if there's like some sort of connection there.
Wait, what?
Well, because the Shah got exiled and his son, and then it got taken over by bad guys. And so then, the Shah right now, he'd be like Simba coming back to save the day,
Does that make
Operation
the
Rising
Ayatollah
Lion.
scar?
Yeah.
Oh, I never thought about that way. Holy crap. Does that make Trump Pumbaa?
The hyenas are they're the Revolutionary Guard.
That makes sense. Yeah. Jesus, I didn't even think about that. You're a genius, Kirk. See, this is why I brought you on.
Yeah.
Hold on. I want to DM you a tweet because I want you to read it in the stupid voice or the obnoxious voice. So,
All
I gotta
right.
find.
Is it on Twitter?
Yeah. Okay. So there's the anyways, I was talking about the American domestic situation. I'll just go to and how there's contradictory polling. Because I'm sure you saw, I think it was a Harry Enton clip on Twitter where he was going over CNN polling. And it's like a majority of Americans supports like airstrikes. And it was like and Crystal and Saga were like crying in their hands over it, and they're like, "Oh, they've been propagandized by the corporate media." Because of course,
he's manufacturing consents. Chomsky was right about everything.
Right. When polls go against them, that's proof that it's propaganda. When polls are for them, that's proof that the American people are well informed and that we should listen to them. Yeah. Of course, if the American people are so easily propagandized, why should we be listening to them? I don't give two fucks about public opinion. Like,
wow.
But that's why, like, okay, here we go. Oh, all right, I'll send it to your Twitter. Like, I find it so funny when people who do just are faced with public opinion that goes against them, because then they have to reconcile with that fact. Let's see here. Subicask for $1.99. Thank you so much, Subicask. You were so generous. If Trump is Pumbaa, is BB Timon? I don't know. I think JD Vance would be Timon then. I think BB would be Rashiki? I don't know. I think we've ran out the the analogy here. I think we're overthinking this.
Oops. Whoopi Goldberg's involved in both. She was a voice of one of the hyenas, and she's also like she has like some cringe takes on what's going on in Iran. So
right. Okay, so let me know when you get the tweet.
Yeah, so it's how can you trust?
Hold on, let me read my tweet first. I said,
okay,
I personally do not care about public opinion at all, but it's always funny to watch some self-proclaimed populists deal with this sort of thing. And again, I'm talking about the overwhelming polling results in favor of like airstrikes getting to nuclear or to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Read. And of course, what is Twitter for if not like complete non sequiturs? So read the response.
how can you trust polls that never require validation with any actual result? Spit out the blue pill.
What a fucking goober. It's like, dude, you totally missed the point of what I was saying. You fucking jack.
Yeah, and it's
plus the blue pill reference. Get fucked. Oh my God. But yeah, so the funny thing about this is Trump, who, you know, supposedly Mr. Anti-war, he never really was anti-war. First of all, I think my position on the anti-war crowd is that I think it's mostly, it's not that they were without their points. I think they're largely naive and stupid. Stupid as
hey. Yeah. War is bad, Stephen.
War is bad.
War is bad.
War is bad, but I think that they are unrealistic and that they really do blame America first. I think that is a much more fair characterization. I think they're quick to ascribe various problems to Western foreign policy, specifically American foreign policy. And that they, you know, we talk about what things would be like without the current regime in Iran. I think that they think the world would be some utopia without American global hegemony, and they're just fucking naive. But anyways, I don't want to go on some fucking anti-war rant. But anyways, I disagree with the position. That's the point. Where the fuck was I going with this? I don't even remember. Anyways, supposedly Donald Trump was the anti-war candidate, and he just basically spoke in cliches about like, you know, we shouldn't be doing wars, you know, we shouldn't be paying for other people, blah, blah, blah. And like a bunch of morons just glommed onto that, like he agrees with us. So Donald Trump espouses this position that I don't think he ever really believed in. And a bunch of people, you know, attach themselves to it. Many of whom I don't really think care about that. Like if you listen to a lot of the podcast bros, you know, a lot of like the Rogan sphere people, I think they mostly just supported Trump because of culture war stuff, which is fine. That's a prerogative. And their foreign policy views are mostly just cliche ridden. They're like, yeah, war's fucking stupid. Yeah, Donald Trump, right? We shouldn't be doing wars. Yeah. And so that's basically their commitment to the issue. And so they didn't notice that, like, he also talked very belligerently at times. And that, like, so you know that Howard Stern clip where he says, like, yeah, I'm in favor of the Iraq war. Have you ever seen that one?
I think I have, yeah.
Yeah, so like people have pointed to that, like, see, he did favor the Iraq war. My takeaway from that is like he clearly didn't think about the issue. Like he doesn't have foreign policy views. Like he made some.
That's really bad being the president of the United States.
Yeah, well, this was back before he was president, obviously, but like he grunted out some noises about being anti-war, and some people took it seriously. Who the fuck cares? And some idiots were dumb enough to believe it. If you look at his first term, he largely governed in a way that it wasn't like that divergent from other presidents in terms of foreign policy. And then in his second term, and then on the campaign trail, again, he made the same grunting noises about being anti-war, and some dipshits, including libertarian dipshits, were dumb enough to buy it. And they were like, he's one of us. It's like, no, he's not. Again, he talks out both sides of his mouth and people hear what they want him to hear. And
wasn't he
now,
wasn't he doing the anti-war song and dance at the Libertarian convention last year?
Yes.
Okay.
But and then Michael Tracy, who I'm not a big fan of, like, has tweeted out a bunch of things where he's like totally bellicose and like talking about how we're gonna bomb the shit out of them. And like, but people just conveniently ignore that fact again because I don't think most of them actually care about that issue. I mean, some of them do, like Dave Smith, who I think sucks, but I think he genuinely like, or is concerned about that. But like again, I don't think most of the bros actually care about that. But it's like, of course, his commitment to this act isn't actually true, which is why apparently, according to the Guardian, he was watching it on TV. And he's like, "Oh, that's cool." He was watching the bombing, and that's when he started taking credit for it. It's like, I played a part in that. I did that, and that's why he's more belligerent now, and that's why he's more gung ho about it. Let's see here.
I think that he genuinely doesn't. If he can get away with not using military force, he doesn't want to. And I think a problem with this is that he doesn't really have a coherent approach to foreign policy at all. And with this conflict, I think there are he has a lot of different conflicting interest in that. I think he likes Israel. He also just likes making deals for the sake of making a deal. And I think he genuinely wanted to make a new Iran deal because he just likes making deals. And if he were to make a new Iran deal, he could just say, "Oh, Obama's deal, terrible, worst deal ever. My deal, best deal ever. I get along great with the Iranians." On top of making deals, he loves to make deals with Islamic theocrats like Saudi Arabia and Qatar, especially if he can get some sort of like business deal out of it with one of his friends or relatives, whether it be Kushner or whatever. But then at the same time, he doesn't want Iran to get a nuclear bomb. And he also doesn't want to anger his anti-war base and whatnot. He also likes Israel, but I also don't think he's that crazy about Bibi Netanyahu. And now he's in a position where it looks like Iran is pretty close to getting a nuclear bomb. If Israel were to destroy their capabilities, he probably doesn't want them to take all the credit for it because he would look weak. He doesn't want to use military force because it would anger his base. And I genuinely get that impression that he doesn't want to. And he also wants to make a deal with the. So I genuinely get a sense, and like this kind of makes sense with his whole 2-week thing the other day. Like, oh, I'll think it over for 2 weeks. It's like I genuinely get the impression that he does not know what the hell to do with this scenario.
I think you're overthinking it. I think he cares about what people on TV say about him. That's really what I think about Trump. I think.
But what if Tucker Carlson gets mad at him? Wouldn't that bother him?
Well, apparently he did. Apparently he did, and then apparently Tucker called him and apologized. I guess.
Oh,
apparently, I don't know.
Also, I got to add, because a reason why I am hesitant to make any hot takes is because a lot of the stuff we read, it's fog of war. There's a lot of clandestine nature to a lot of the stuff going on, and stuff could come out in weeks or months that just totally contradict what I said. So I want to throw that out there. A lot of this is just me spitballing and speculating.
It could. I mean, this could be bullshit. It's who knows. Goro Cero for $5. Thank you so much. If you're so hungry for dying troops, we'll draft you and have you on the front lines. I'm farsighted. They probably wouldn't take me. So
yeah, I don't think they'd take me either.
I'm a little too old at this point too, so I can conveniently just, sort of marshal other people in my favor. But no, I don't want American troops on the ground in Iran. But no, but what do you think is the best response to that? Because that is a common argument. If you're gung ho for war, why don't you go?
Yeah, I mean, I want the police to enforce the law. There might be some bad guys breaking in. I don't have a gun. I don't have the training to stop them. Oh, we should say, why don't you have to be a police officer then? It's totally, it's a cop-out, as you said. It's just lazy thinking from people who don't want to think much about this.
Yeah. Michael Brandon Marte, $4.99. Thank you so much. Did you see Dave Smith on the Young Turks or Jank and Crystal and Friends? I saw him on Talking to Jank, and he called for Donald Trump to be impeached, which, he was the first. And granted, he was never some gung ho Trumper, but for a high profile libertarian like him to, I guess, break ranks like that, or, to break ranks to vote for Trump in the first place was kind of a big deal. Granted, he's just a big deal in the online world in our space. And then, throw a support behind him like that. What's that?
Has Trump done anything so far in this term that you think warrants an impeachment and removal from him?
That's good.
Not to put you on the spot. I know, it's hard to keep up with everything he's done, but
I mean, by my standards, yes, but by the standards of the norms of America, probably not. My standard.
The point I was getting at was this is the thing that's pushing you over the top, not the disregard for stuff like due process, not these shady crypto coin things he's been doing, the executive orders with the tariffs and all of that nonsense. This is where you draw the line. I think it's pretty revealing.
No, I mean, okay, Dave Smith's priority is war, whatever. Okay, you want to get him on that. But yeah, I mean, I have a very low bar for impeachment and removal. I think pretty much every president in my lifetime could be impeached and removed.
Definitely, I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah. By the norms and standards of American presidents, yeah, I think Donald Trump, even by then, could be impeached and removed by a number of things. But him
calling himself a king on Twitter was enough for me. I'm like, get this guy out of here. I'm done. JD Vance is going to suck for the next few years, but I'm not tolerating this.
Sure. Anyways, yes, I did see him. Yeah, it was so for him to call for Trump to be impeached and removed. Again, I assume that Dave Smith has a pretty low standard for that. Well, actually, when it comes to war, again, the other stuff apparently wasn't a deal breaker. And I said to you privately, Dave Smith's go-to for whenever the media says something he doesn't like, he's like, "Oh, you mean the people who said we should go to war with Iraq because they had weapons of mass destruction? Oh, that." So now whenever Dave Smith says something, we get to go, "Oh, you mean the guy who told us that we should vote for Trump? The guy who bombed Iran? Huh? That guy? Huh? So now
also that $400 million gift from Qatar, that was probably impeachable. That's kind of shady.
Nah, that's all fine. That's all fine. But so that's my response is that, again, he wasn't he was sufficiently anti-war in his first term, Dave Smith, really. And again, did Dave Smith just ignore him being belligerent on the campaign trail when he was? I don't know. I don't know. I could say something very self-serving right now, but if he wasn't I would say if I was being very self-serving, I would say if Dave Smith wasn't a fucking moron, he wouldn't have the foreign policy he did. He does, but I wouldn't say that because that would be too self-serving. But, Subicask for $4.99. Listening to Nick Fuentes' views on Israel and its influence on our politics, it's scary how many of his talking points leftists also use. That's true. It's definitely horseshoe theory stuff. Yeah, I mean, and it's very conspiratorial too. They talk about I mean, in the case of, the Jenks and the Kyle Kalinskis, they think it's just a small group of people running everything, but it's just not the Jews. It's just
it's the billionaires. It's the billionaires.
Right. It's the billionaires, or it's
it's the 1%, the corporations, the military industrial complex, Wall Street,
the oil companies. And of course, the oil companies is a handful of executives in a boardroom.
Well, see, the PC version of blaming the Jews is just blaming AIPAC and the Israeli lobby. That's the PC version of it.
And in the leftist mind, they control our foreign policy in the Middle East. That's just their area. The oil policy, that's not controlled by the Jews. If one of those oil executives happens to be Jewish, that's coincidence. But energy policy is just a handful. All the Americans want green energy or whatever, but it's just a handful of executive controlling the oil policy. And then, pick another issue. Healthcare, greedy. It's just a handful of greedy executives. If it wasn't for them, we would have single payer healthcare.
Yeah.
And again, yeah. So Yeah, but it's you're right. It's very similar. It's a very similar belief structure. It just happens to be a different set of villains, but it operates along very similar lines. Very good.
Yeah, conspiracy thinking is out of control in modern political commentary.
Definitely. Drin and Jajako, $2. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Super chat fucking sucks. You obviously couldn't write what you wanted, but I appreciate it. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know. So I covered all of what we wanted to talk about.
Did you? Did you?
I wanted to talk.
What about the Iran nuclear deal? What are we missing that?
Oh,
Have you seen everyone posting the chart like, oh my God, Obama had this wonderful deal, and if it had stayed in place, nothing would have ever happened.
I wanted to come back to that because you mentioned something that I hadn't heard about, which was apparently there were these 2 nuclear sites that they had that they didn't let inspectors in. I hadn't heard about that because, like, what the fuck I don't know what inspectors see. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, they were complying, but what was the source for these 2 sites?
I will send it to you on Twitter, and I'll also post in chat. I don't know if it's paywall. The New Yorker typically is, but this one is not for me. It's in chat. I will send it to you. It's a long piece, and if you're interested in the topic of Iran, I would recommend it. It was published in 2020. It's called "The Twilight of the Iranian Revolution," and yeah, it reports on a Mossad mission that was in 2018, but. The Iran nuclear deal, I don't think was a good deal. And even if it did what everyone says it did, even if it was a success, all it did was really delay Iran building nuclear weapons. And even I have this article up from 2016 on CNN by Elise Labat that talks about how even John Kerry, when asked about whether some of the $150 billion in to Iran would go to terrorist groups, Kerry reiterated that after settling debts, Iran would receive closer to $55 billion. He conceded some of that could go to groups considered terrorists, saying that there was nothing the United States could do to prevent that. Quote, I think some of it in the end will end up in the hands of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps or other entities, some of which are labeled terrorists. He said at a meeting in Davos, and then went on to say, to some degree, I'm not going to sit here and tell you every component of that can be prevented. So even if they didn't build nuclear bombs, they probably would have gotten even more money to fund terrorist groups like Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, who we know was operating in Iraq, given the strike on Qasem Soleimani. So they still would have been dangerous. And there was I also read that back in 2016, I think this is Obama's intelligence director, James Clapper, said, we do not know whether Iran will eventually build nuclear weapons, adding that the regime, if they choose to, it still maintains the ability to build missile deliverable nuclear weapons. And I think there was another quote reiterating that what has been known for decades. James Clapper told Congress that the regime in Tehran is the foremost state sponsor of terrorism. So, okay, good that they're not getting a nuclear bomb, but they still probably would have carried out attacks against Americans. October 7th, some attack like that probably still would have happened, in which I think 40 Americans got killed and I think 12 more got taken hostage. So, yeah, I don't think this was a good deal. And that's assuming we want to give the regime in Iran a benefit of doubt, which I don't think they're worthy of. And there's just a lot of other baggage that comes with making a deal with monsters like this after they've already had a long history of attacking Americans, chanting death to America. And as I said earlier, serves as a symbolic entity that if you attack Americans or American supported governments, no one will really do much about it.
Right. So as I understand the deal, it was basically sanctions, very strict sanctions were lifted off of Iran.
Yeah.
In exchange for compliance with certain rules of not making nukes. They could only enrich uranium to certain percentages. They had to comply with his inspections to make sure that they weren't using nukes. And one of the results of these sanctions was like, what was it? $110 billion, you said? Flowed back into
CNN said 150 billion, but they would pay off debts, and after that, they have 55 billion.
Okay. Yeah, again, that's like you said, that there are other concerns there. That's money that's going into the coffers of a rogue regime. And there
according
are
to the Council on Foreign Relations, I think some of the restrictions would have sunsetted next year anyway. And overall, I think the deal was only a 15-year deal. So it's it sounds like they were just trying to kick the can down the road. And even in the best case scenario, I think it was a terrible deal.
And this is not about the deal per se itself, but this is one of the idiotic things about governance by executive order. Was what the deal was effectively a treaty, and it should have been passed in Congress as such, but it never would have been, because that would have taken, I believe, 2/3 of the vote, the Senate, to approve it. But had it been passed like that, Trump couldn't have just come in and taken us out of it. But that's what happened. And that's what can happen with anything Trump has done by executive order. But that's an aside. But yeah, like with the inspections, and I get that that's the same thing that they said with Iraq, like, oh, we couldn't do the inspections, or they're hiding stuff from us. But of course, with a rogue regime, that is possible. And according to that New Yorker article, that was happening. Let's see here. Oh God, your name. you super chatted before, and I appreciate it. Chayak and Mike N are the best. $4.99. Populists have to promote conspiracies. A fundamental belief is that they're popular, and they lose, and and when they lose, they can't admit that they're unpopular. Exactly. That's the essence of it. Like,
when your whole ideology is a small group of people are screwing over the masses, like, yeah, it's a worldview that's prone to conspiracy thinking.
Yeah, that's the one thing populists cannot concede, is that they're unpopular. That if they're on the outside looking in, then that gives away the whole thing. They have to be with the people. And so they either have to narrow the scope of what the people are, and that's oftentimes what right-wing populists do, or they have to, say that the people have been manipulated. And that's usually the tactic they do. And of course, that's what Crystal and Saga were doing when that poll came up that showed that Americans support airstrikes, which is always funny, because it undercuts them in a way that they don't appreciate, because according to them, the people are very easily manipulated. It's like, so why are we listening to the people? And how can you tell when something is genuinely the will of the people, and when it's not, a result of propaganda? And of course, they just post hoc rationalize it. When we win, it's because they wanted it. When the other people win, it's because they were propagandized. Simple.
I think I recall, I to find it, but it would require me to sit through 3 hours of an entire Joe Rogan episode from 5 years ago. But they were both on Rogan, and I swore I'm pretty sure I remember Saga saying something like the Republican Party needs to an agenda of 51 plus, find a bunch of issues that the majority of Americans are on board with, and just run on that, because it's what the people want.
Yeah.
But it's what happens when the people do something you don't want, want to do airstrikes on Iran?
After Trump was elected, he also said, basically Trump should be able to do what he wants. He won the election. It's like, okay, first of all, yes, he was fairly elected, albeit indirectly through the Electoral College. But, fuck Congress. I mean, who elected them? Come on.
Do you think this is why a reason why they're still on about the 2020 election being stolen? Because that way they don't have to take responsibility for the fact that the American people did vote in Biden and the Democrats, and presumably all the because now they're all about, this is what the American people voted for. American people voted for this. They never said that during the Biden years, but I guess you don't have to own that when you just think that the election was stolen.
Oh, that's exactly what it is. I mean, that's with Obama. It was because, that was the essence of birtherism. He wasn't really president. His agenda didn't really count, because he wasn't really president. I mean, that's the essence of it. It's like,
I didn't even think about that.
He didn't actually have buy-in because his votes were fraudulent. And I'm reading this book called Blue Anon, and it talks about how prevalent election denialism actually is. And because for those of you who don't know, who haven't been paying attention to elections for much longer than like 2020, people denying elections is pretty prevalent, or has been going on for my entire life. Nuh-uh, he didn't win. Nuh-uh, nah, my guy won. He cheated, or the other guy cheated. And it's just people are babies and they don't want to accept the fact that sometimes you don't get what you want. Okay.
Yeah, and the way a lot of people who maybe believe that 2020 was on the up and up, but they'll say, but Democrats did it first, man. Stacey Abrams, oh no. Like that's
Chia Key and Mikan are the best. This better. Yes, thank you so much. You didn't have to super chat that. I will I appreciate that. Next time you super chat, if you do super chat, again, I appreciate it so much. You just put it in the chat and I will regularly, and I will do my best to pronounce it. Also, if you would tell me what that means, I would love it, because I'm so confused by it. But I really appreciate you. I know you super chat often, and I really appreciate you. But
so I have a question. Do you think do you think this is going to potentially fracture the MAGA base because of Ted Cruz going at Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon are all upset about this, and I think they're trying to influence Trump to like not get too involved in this?
That's a good question.
Mark Levin and Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro are all at each other's throats.
By the way, I know I texted this to you, but Kyle Klinsky legitimately made me laugh when he said that Mark Levin sounded like a dying emu. Because Mark Levin does legitimately have an annoying voice. How that guy made a radio career is just proof that anything can happen in America. But
and the communists,
I don't think that most of the anti-war belief is sincere. So I think most of them will go along with it. I really do. Yeah, he will lose some of them. He will. Most of them will go along with it, though, because I think most of them are invested in Trump for reasons not having to do with policy. So I think most of them will, as long as he's owning the libs, as long as he's doing the culture war stuff, as long as he has a perception of winning or whatever the fuck it is that I like about him, I think they're going to go with it. He will lose some, though, inevitably, because some of them do actually, give a shit about it. But for the most part, no. What do you think?
I think there's a high likelihood that like in a few weeks, few months, especially if this wraps up anytime soon, that something else will pop up in the news that will Trump will do something that will get them all excited and united behind something again. What that is, I don't know.
Yeah. And again,
but I can't help but wonder if people like Bannon are starting to recognize that this presidency has a very short shelf life, especially if the Democrats win the midterms. The last 2 years is pretty much going to be a lame duck. And if Trump does some stuff that he strongly doesn't like, then he can at least position himself as saying, yeah, Trump did some good things, but it wasn't real MAGA. If he hadn't gotten bogged down in Iran, he could have focused more on the border or whatever. But this next guy running, that's going to be real MAGA. Okay.
I've noticed a lot of them are already doing the Trump is being manipulated by the people around him. That was their go-to excuse the first term, and they're doing it again. Which is like, if this guy's so easily manipulated, why the fuck are you so like culturally devoted to him? But hey, whatever, man.
Yeah, I think this also explains the passionate hatred of Dr. Fauci, right?
Yeah.
A little bit, because there are some legitimate reasons to not like Dr. Fauci, but it's like, if you can just laser focus on Fauci, you can just blame him and the Democrat mayors and governors for all the horrible stuff that happened under COVID, and just take any blame or responsibility out of Trump's hands. Like, oh, he was manipulated. He was being influenced by Fauci and Dr. Deborah Birx. Like the mask mandates, the lockdowns, that wasn't Trump's fault. He just had bad experts or whatever.
No, exactly. Speaking of viruses, you know what movie I watched last night?
Virus movie. What movie?
28 Weeks Later.
Oh,
Yeah, because I was supposed to go to 28 Years Later with my brother last night, but he had something going on, so I wasn't able to go. But it was really good, and I don't want to spoil anything, but boy, did they fuck up at the end there. If you've ever seen it, I don't know. Colt Savage, $2. Thank you so much, Colt. The two goats in the political commentary sphere. I appreciate it. So Kirk has a video that he will be releasing soon. I am finally going to finish that trade debate video. I was originally going to make like 3 shorter videos. I'm just going to clump them into one. Because it was like going to be, it was going to be like 2.5 videos. But I'm just like, fuck it. I'm just going to make it one. It's going to have like chapters in it or whatever. But you know what's going to help me finish that video?
Cutting the stream short?
I'm going to drink one of these. And because it really helped me hit the flow state, man. Like, it really it's really easy to stack. It did nothing. I feel literally nothing. Like, I don't know what the fuck Lion's Mane is supposed to do, but I don't know.
See, when you're doing this, I'm thinking I need to like factor in some sort of like surfer hippie guy into some of my videos now. I need to get you to call in some favors or whatever.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that. There's one of them has caffeine in it, which would actually do something. I know that, but then like I'll just drink coffee and that'll do something. But
this actually has caffeine in it. The only flavor sticks. The Sunkist orange says contains caffeine, and I don't know why it's with the oranges and never anything else.
Because Sunkist doesn't have caffeine in it.
Yeah,
that's weird. Huh? I don't know. Anyways, I saw in the chat that somebody said I look like Richard Spencer with hair.
What?
Actually, no, fat hungover Richard Spencer, which, okay, fair enough. Yeah.
I don't see it.
Okay, well, I don't know.
But I haven't seen Richard Spencer in a long time either. I see him pop up on Twitter and I just disregard whatever he says.
That is a gigantic.
Oh, speaking of
is a gigantic cup. Holy shit, Kirk. Why are you drinking out of such a gigantic cup?
I don't know. It was a cup I got in Vegas years and years ago. And yeah, that's like one of the things I'm frugal about it. Cupware. So while we're on the topic of foreign affairs,
okay.
I noted, I think I told you about this, but a few weeks ago, there was WWE had an event called Saturday Night's Main Event, and they always have Jesse Ventura on their Saturday Night Main Event shows, and he's a terrible commentator. And when he was on last time, people on Twitter, wrestling fans, were complaining about it. And I noticed every time someone was complaining, there would be a bunch of those beautiful woman avatar bots in the replies to argue with them. And I was like, oh yeah, he was I think he still does work for Russia Today. And I couldn't help but wonder if that's like a deal. You just forever get like an army of Russian bots to defend you. And like even some of the comments where they're like, Jesse Ventura had no business being in that cage match. It's like, he wasn't in the fucking cage match. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm assuming that like, well, I mean, obviously they see him as useful. That's why they gave him the job forever. Or that's why they gave him the job in the first place. But obviously Russia Today is not around anymore, horribly. But yeah, obviously, so they have to promote him in other ways. They have to unleash the bot farms. Okay. Okay, you're the one who said it. But he said hungover. I said drunk and fat. Okay, fat. Okay, fair enough. Drunk, though. I'm not drunk, man. I'm feeling the flow right now. Because I like, I drank the fucking flow thing. Like, this is really easy to stack.
You're breeze buzzed.
Don't buy this unless it's got the THC. Then it might actually do something for you, but only if you want to get high and hide under the covers like I do when I smoke or imbibe THC. Drosky, $10. You didn't say anything, but I appreciate it. Drunk is in the eyes, but you look a bit tired. I've been up for a while now. Maybe that's why I'm not feeling anything. I've been up since like 1 a.m. I got up at 2 and started.
Really?
Yeah, but I worked out at 2 a.m. this morning. So
good.
Yeah. TLDR, what's your opinion on the current situation? My opinion is that the military-industrial complex is going to lead to the death of us all, and the oil companies are going to get rich. I made a video about this about a year ago. Like, when I worked for a defense contractor, the building, just the facility I worked at, lost tens of millions of dollars in sales when the United States pulled out of the JCPOA. That's the Iran deal. Because Boeing had a $100 billion contract with the Iranian government to make their new civilian fleet. So like this idea that like defense contractors just going to get rich with the war money. It's like, you know, that all of these companies make money selling shit that's not just weapons. Like every single one of them is like diversified. And so like when Iran's markets came open, Boeing and Airbus were like, "Ooh, we can make money." And then all their subcontractors were like, "Sweet, we can make money too." And so we lost a shit ton of business when they pulled out of the Iran deal. But of course, myopic fucking Cenk Uygur doesn't know that, because it's just easier to explain foreign policy by going, defense contractor want war. Defense contractor going to cause war. I can explain foreign policy in one sentence.
I felt like the Star Wars movie should have put the bed to this, because that was like what Rose Tico was going on about. Like that's what's really causing all the war. It's defense contractors and weapons manufacturers. Like I'm pretty sure it's a Sith Lord, you dumb idiot.
Hunter for $5. The U.S. has hit Iran's nuclear sites. Apparently, Trump is saying this on True Social. Hold on.
Shout out to Hunter, by the way. I noticed. I think he mentioned earlier that there are Iranians who often go to Okan, and he's right. And shout out to them too. Hope you guys are doing okay.
Good. We needed an Iranian objective. This movement. Yeah. U.S. strikes Iran nuclear facilities. This is from Maxios. Oh, hold on. I'm going to go to the New York Times because I have a subscription. Live updates. By the way, this is why you need to support new media, because you can only get the news here. You can only see two douchebags read a New York Times article. Fuck the legacy media. Fuck the legacy media. They're going to manufacture consent, because you can only get news like this here. I'm being facetious, of course. If it wasn't for the New York Times, we wouldn't be able to hear this shit. So support actual media. But
that's another glaring double standard. Is that when the media reports something that they like, they just run with it and commentate. If the media reports something that they vehemently disagree with, they're like, "Look at the media. They're trying to convey a narrative," or some gobbledygook.
By the way, this might seem like an aside, but did you see the whole Ethan Klein suing YouTubers thing?
I have not gotten into that. No.
Okay, so
I want to.
I don't watch like reaction streams, but apparently there is a problem with like reaction streamers just like sitting there and watching actual content and basically not saying anything.
Oh yeah.
And some of them do it literally to steal views from those guys. Like, and Ethan is suing three different streamers who are like, "Yeah, if you want to watch his content nuke of Hassan Piker, watch it on my stream so that you can see it, but you don't support Ethan." And now he's suing them. And my mind
explicitly said this?
Yes, they explicitly said this. And he copyrighted that video. And so now he has the grounds to sue them. When he said that, I thought of all those fucking election night coverages where it's like, "Oh, yeah. Oh, hey, it's our news channel. Come here for the straight dope," as I refresh the New York Times page for the fucking election results from the actual news organization. But anyways, we're gonna read from an actual news organization, the New York Times. Live updates: U.S. enters war with Iran. What? Bombing key nuclear sites? What? I guess. That's what it says. That's the headline. President Trump announced the United States has struck Fordo, Iran's heavily fortified nuclear facilities. So the United States is literally involved.
Damn, breaking news on Stephen Michael Davis channel. All right.
Okay. Here's the latest. The United States dropped bombs on 3 nuclear sites in Iran on Saturday. President Trump announced, bringing the United States military directly into Israel's war with Iran after days of uncertainty about whether he would intervene in the conflict. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace, he said in a social media post on Saturday night, adding that a full payload of bombs had been dropped on Fordo. Frodo.
All that's what we dropped the ring into the volcano. That's what the planes were dropping.
All planes are safely on their way home. Okay. By the time the U.S. aircraft bombed the Natanz nuclear site, the International Atomic Energy Agency assessed that all the centrifuges in its hull, about 100 feet underground, had been knocked out by Israel's attack on the electrical system that fed the machines, which spin at supersonic speeds. But the U.S. bombs would have likely done far more damage to the facility, the same one that the Bush and Obama administrations hit more than 15 years ago with the Stuxnet cyber attack. The covert attack was undertaken because both Bush and Obama considered bombing to be too risky. Interesting. So apparently we just dropped a big old bomb onto this nuclear centrifuges. Wow. We just broke news here, Kirk.
Yeah.
This is why you need to come to my
stream. Don't forget to
like
and subscribe to Stephen Michael Davis. Don't forget to support the show, his Patreon, because he's going to report what the mainstream media is going to tell you.
The mainstream media is not going to talk about this, okay? This is why you need to come here. Yeah. You need to come here to listen to me read off the New York Times and act like I'm a fucking journalist, because that's what this is. Anyways, that's wild.
Last night, I was listening to Ilan Journo and Onkar Gate of the Ayn Rand Institute talk about how, like, one of the takeaway, or maybe not one of the takeaways, but like a lesson that should probably be considered is that because after 9/11, like, Iran was just kind of off limits because they were a large country and they had a larger military than Iraq and this and that. But then, like, Israel has just completely obliterated their air defense system and like embarrassed Iran and are just like manhandling them. Little Israel with their like far smaller military. And it's like, if they're able to do this, why couldn't America do it over the last 20, 25 years? Go at Iran?
I don't know. So I said I don't think this is going to go anywhere earlier in this stream. Does that deserve a this didn't age well?
This didn't age well. Or me saying, I genuinely don't, I still feel this way. I genuinely don't think Trump, I think he tries to avoid war and military force.
Yeah. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
There's a difference between dropping bombs and boots on the ground. And people won't acknowledge. Yeah. I get that, like, yeah, both are technically acts of war, but they're like, it is a distinction worth making. But
because
whatever.
I think even the Syria strikes and the Soleimani strike in his first term, if I recall correctly, I think he kind of begrudgingly and dragged his feet on those two, but I might be misremembering details.
Yeah, that is wild. Cool.
I think he tries to just solve conflicts by just typing all caps tweets and hoping world leaders will take him seriously.
Oh, what a country. My goodness. That is wild. Anyways, should we end on that note?
Why not?
All right. Well, folks, that is crazy. I'm going to go for Kyle Kulinski's take on it because I'm sure he just posted a video on it.
World War III.
What's that?
Oh, yeah, that's another thing. I did a stream on this. I didn't put it up on YouTube, but I was reacting to like old Tucker Carlson clips because everyone's like, when did Tucker Carlson become like this? And I'm like, he's been like this for a long time, guys. Yeah. But when we did the Soleimani strike, he was like saying, oh, this is going to get us into a war with Iran. And who knows what will happen then? It's like, this was like, I think January of 2020, he did that segment. And 5 years later, finally, we're dropping a bomb or two.
Sweet. Cool. Thanks for joining us, guys. Thank you, Kirk, for joining me. Stick on for a minute or two. We'll talk after the stream ends. Don't drink breeze, it sucks. Thanks for the super chats, those of you who did. Thanks for watching. And remember, support journalism like this. And remember, rock the Casbah, guys.